Shout out to Cincinnati and UTSA. That's right. Those two teams, along with me and the Georgia Bulldogs, we're all undefeated. No one else can say that. So if you're not me, Georgia, Cincinnati, or UTSA, well, sit the fuck down. Oh, man. Week 11? Gone. In the books. No do-overs. No do-overs, Texas. No do-overs, Oklahoma. Sorry. It is what it is. Anyway, Week 11 is in the books. 2 weeks left in the regular season. Then conference championship games. Then a bunch of bowl games. Then the playoffs. I sure am interested to see who my Georgia Bulldogs are going to get matched up with in the playoffs. I can't wait to find out. That's not the point of this video. Although at the end of today's video, I will tell you the 4 playoff teams. I will tell you who the 4 playoff teams are going to be. I'll even give you the seeding. How about that? I'll even give you how they're going to be seeded. So we will know the playoff matchups at the end of today's video because Uncle Lou will let you know. But this is the Your Season is Over video for Week 11, so it's time to discuss another list of losers in the world of college football for 2021. We have some real doozies today. Got some real doozies. Again, we had some of everything this weekend. We had some upsets. We had some undefeated top 10 teams lose. We had some one-win teams beat, or a one-win team beat one of the biggest names and biggest brands in all of college football in humiliating fashion. We had great finishes. We had close games. We had some amazing plays. We had some amazing individual performances. We'll highlight all that stuff in today's video, but per usual, we have to start with the list of losers. And like I said, the list is absolutely unbelievable this week. Where should we start? We've been just starting at the top of the helmets and works the ways down. So why don't we start right here? Now, I made a video about these bums. There's a group of homeless people here. I said last week, the helmet's going upside down and it's staying upside down. Well, Texas didn't do anything to even make me consider changing my mind about that decision this week, did they? No. They went out and got absolutely beat down in the first half against Kansas, which is strange because normally Texas is winning at halftime. Go back and look at the box scores for Texas this year. I've talked about this 2 or 3 weeks in a row. They normally win the first half and they get blown out in the second half and toe to giant L. They didn't bother winning even the first half this week. They were getting destroyed, I think, 35-14 at halftime by Kansas. Came back in the second half. And this almost made it funnier to me. You know, when it was halftime and the game was 35-14, it's easy as a Texas fan to just go, well, for whatever reason, we're losing this game. This is over. We're getting blown out by Kansas. I don't know what's going on here. It almost makes it easier to deal with 2 hours later when the game finally comes to an end because you sort of expected it, over a 2-hour period in the second half. And so the letdown occurs over a long period of time. It's not a steep drop off. But Texas wasn't going to let the Texas fan get off that easy. Nope, Texas had to mount a miracle comeback against an amazing Kansas Jayhawks team yesterday. And then lose it at the very end. And that's the worst way to lose, at the very end like that. So, yeah, Texas is an absolute, they're horrible. Now, it's a first-year head coach, so you haven't heard me say anything at all. They got to get rid of Sarkisian. He doesn't know what he's doing. What a terrible hire. I don't really think you can judge a coach in his first year at a school, whether he's really, really good or really, really bad. Right? So I don't know. Now, obviously, Sarkisian has got a lot of work to do between now and next season in a lot of different areas, whether that's personnel with recruiting, transfer portal, whether it's some coaching decisions, whether it's the way he approaches practices or preparation, whatever it is. He's obviously got a lot of work to do, but he's a first-year head coach. So I'm not going to get on here with a fire Sarkisian routine, but this is an unacceptable loss. Completely unacceptable. Kansas is the same Kansas we've always known they were. I mean, they're just one of the worst Power 5 teams in America every single year. They were 1-8 heading into yesterday's matchup with Texas. And like Texas, they have a brand new first-year coaching. They have a brand new coaching staff too. So this was head-scratching. You know, you had the news come out. Not sure how many of y'all heard about this or heard the audio. But after last week's loss, some audio got leaked, I'm assuming by a player, on the team bus after the game, where one of the assistant coaches stood up on the bus and basically went on like a 60-second tirade against the players. You know, some of y'all need to get out of this program. Some of y'all need to hit the portal. If you heard it, you heard it. If you didn't, look it up. Texas assistant coach tirade, you'll find it. Apparently, the players did not respond well to that tongue lashing. You know, when you do something like that, it can have one of two effects. You know, the players can sort of rise to the occasion. You know what? He's right. What are we doing? Look, we got to get it together. Or they can say, who does this guy think he is talking to me that way? And obviously, that's what the players did. It was evident at halftime of this game that the Texas team did not put a lot of effort, energy, motivation, excitement, anything into this matchup with Kansas. And unfortunately for the Shorthorns, they came and got ran out of the building in the first half. And then Kansas hangs on and wins at the very end. And this is the type of loss that can set you back. This is the type of loss that can cause a recruit to rethink what he's doing. You know, a recruit that might be committed to Texas or considering Texas. I don't think you can underestimate the significance of this loss. I don't think it's the end of the world for Texas. You know, like I said, I don't think, you know, we need to be out here with the Fire Sarkisian tweets and all that, since it's his first year as a coach there. But this loss will probably have a negative effect in some type of way on Texas. How big of a negative effect remains to be seen. But this is the type of loss that you can't accept as a team, as a coaching staff, as an administration, and as fans. Texas fans, you should not be accepting of this loss. And I'm sure the Texas fans are beside themselves losing this game. And you should be, and you have every right to be. This was a bad loss for Texas. There's no doubt about it. You know, you look at certain teams in college football that aren't meeting expectations by about the halfway point of the season. And depending on how bought in those players are to the coach, the coaching staff, the program itself, the sort of overall philosophy of where the program may or may not be headed, the more bought in a team is at the halfway point of a season that hasn't gone like you wanted it to go, the more likely you are as a team to hang on and continue to play well and give your all for the rest of the season. The less bought in you are as a team, you know, it can go the other way. And we've seen a couple of examples this season of teams doing each of those two things, right? You look at Florida. They are going the wrong way. Texas, they reached the half point of the season. They are going the wrong way. These are examples of two teams that just aren't fully bought into what's going on inside their respective programs for whatever reason. Then you look at teams like Florida State and Miami. They too had disappointing first halves of the season. Those two teams have managed to put watchable products on the field even in the second half of the season. And we'll talk more about Florida and Florida State, Miami later in this video, but I'm just mentioning them now as an example of, you know, it's kind of the Robert Frost thing. You know, I came to a path in the woods and it diverged or whatever it is. And which path do you take? Some teams are taking the path of throwing the towel in, and some teams are taking the path of getting behind their coach, their coaching staff, and their school, and continuing to try to use the second half of the season as a way to develop and build momentum for next year. And unfortunately for Texas, they chose option A. They have given up at this point, and that was obvious yesterday in the game against Kansas. Texas season was over a long time ago, but you lose to Kansas, you're going on the your season is over video. So Texas, congratulations. How about these nerds here? This group of future Pep Boys managers here. I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't even have had Georgia Tech on the list this week for losing to Boston College if not for the fact that we play them in 2 weeks. Now, you won't see very many Georgia Tech fans around. Georgia Tech fans, they come out, once every couple of years when Georgia Tech is winning 7, 8, 9 games towards this time of the season and pretend to be football fans. Not all of them. You got the Georgia Tech fans that stick around year round, but for the most part, that's how the majority of Georgia Tech fans act. A horrible season for Georgia Tech. Another home loss yesterday to a beatable Boston College team. Boston College is not a good team. They're not a good team. I know they got their starting quarterback back, but they're not a good team. And it ended up being a close game. I guess you can hang your hat on that. At least you didn't get blown out. But it was another loss in a game that you felt like Georgia Tech had a chance to win. And Georgia Tech appears to be one of those teams that is finding ways to lose instead of finding ways to win. 2 weeks ago, they could have beat Miami. And that would have been a pretty good win based on the way Miami has been playing the last 4 to 5 weeks. But instead of finding a way to win a close game at the end, Georgia Tech found a way to lose a close game at the end of Miami. And the same thing happened yesterday. Georgia Tech could have won that game. There were points in that game where if you were watching, you know what? Georgia Tech could probably pull this off. Instead of finding a way to do it, they found a way to lose. They got a couple of games left. Their last one is against Georgia. They will probably lose that game by 50 points. Facts. The few Georgia Tech fans that hang around this channel, don't you think that's what's probably going to happen in the Georgia game? That game's in Atlanta. There will probably be more Georgia fans there than Georgia Tech fans, to be honest with you. You got a lot of Georgia fans right now who are looking to go to a game that maybe haven't gotten to a game yet this year. They want to go so they can say they went to a game this year when they look back and talk about this season. So we'll see. But Georgia Tech, again, a coach that's in his third year and appears to be stuck in neutral, if not reverse. There were times in Jeff Collins' first year at Georgia Tech, in my opinion anyway, where they looked better than they looked at any point last year or this year. That is concerning to me if I'm a Georgia Tech fan, which I'm not, nor would I ever be. I have too much pride and dignity to ever be a Georgia Tech fan. But that's a little concerning. Now, they're still recruiting okay, especially compared to where they were recruiting under Paul Johnson. So we'll see. But this is year 3, and it's pretty much a wash at this point. It's a loss. This season is not good. Next year, year 4, if Georgia Tech is sitting at this point in the season next year with 3, 4, 5 wins, then you got a significant problem that you got to start looking at if you're Georgia Tech in terms of Jeff Collins and is he the right fit for that job. Georgia's loaded with talent, the state of Georgia, I mean. And while I think everyone knows Georgia is always going to get more of that talent than Georgia Tech, there is so much talent in Georgia that a competent coaching staff with the ability to really recruit has an opportunity to recruit and develop a top 25 team at Georgia Tech. There's really not a reason, especially being in the ACC, there's really not a reason that Georgia Tech can't be a perennial top 25 team. There's really not a legitimate reason. They're in one of the biggest metro areas in the United States, Atlanta, that is absolutely loaded with talent. They got to get down into South Georgia and start getting some of those guys too. And of course, you got to go out of state for people too. And I know about the academic thing. But look, that's a choice Georgia Tech is making. So, the Georgia Tech fans and the Notre Dame fans and the Stanford fans and these people that come on and say, well, it's because we can't recruit the same kind of players y'all recruit. Take it up with your school. I don't know what to tell you. It's not an Uncle Lou rule. There's nothing magical about Georgia Tech that says they can only accept a football player who has whatever, blah, 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 academic, this and that. The NCAA sets a minimum standard. If you as an institution choose to operate at a higher standard, that's fine, and I'm not knocking that. But you as a fan of Georgia Tech can't then come on and say, well, we can't recruit the same people because the academic. And besides that, there's not a whole lot of truth to that anyway. Georgia football team has a higher graduation rate than Georgia Tech's. They have a higher grade point average. So, this idea that Georgia Tech is, football team is filled with a bunch of rocket scientists, get real. Please, get real. Your season is over. Boy, my boy Carolina Jackpot was on one last night. For those of y'all that might have tuned into some of his South Carolina versus Missouri stream, you got a good look at some of that last night. But to me, this was a disappointing loss for South Carolina. Even though I think smart, knowledgeable college football fans know why South Carolina beat Florida 2 weeks ago. Florida had thrown a towel in. South Carolina was playing Florida the week after they played Georgia. Go back and check teams' records the week after they play Georgia. Georgia usually causes teams to lose 2 games. They lose to Georgia and they lose the next one. He had fired his coordinators. It was just a big mess. Or he was going to fire his coordinator. It was just a big mess. At Florida, really for about 3 weeks leading up to that South Carolina game. There was the recruiting mess that Mullen got himself into when he jumbled his words around. There were several decommitments from Florida's 2022 and 2023 class. It was just a mess going on at Florida. And it's clear to anybody with a brain that Florida just had given up. And that's one of the reasons South Carolina won. That being said, South Carolina did come out and play a good game. So I don't want to take anything away from South Carolina, but you got to understand both sides of the equation there. But with that being said, I thought that could have provided some much needed confidence to a South Carolina team that really had no reason to have much confidence up until that Florida game. And it worked out great because they were playing the following week, this past weekend, a pretty bad Mizzou team, who prior to the Florida game, I would have thought maybe was a coin flip type of game. But given the way South Carolina played and the outcome of the Florida game, I said, well, this is the confidence and the momentum boost that South Carolina needed to go out and beat a bad Missouri team. And again, kind of like Georgia Tech, instead of finding a way to win that game, they found a way to lose it. I think South Carolina is better than Missouri. I think if South Carolina and Missouri played 10 times, South Carolina would win more than half of those games. But you don't play 10 times, you play once, and that happened to be yesterday. And you went out and you pooped down your own leg and found a way to lose the game. And that's a bad loss. As much as the week before's win against Florida was a good win for Beamer in his first year, for South Carolina as a program, it was the biggest win over Florida in program history at South Carolina. As much as that was a good win, you followed it up with a bad win. Now, to be fair, you see this a lot with young, not very talented, not very deep teams with new coaching staffs. Inconsistency, right? Inconsistency. South Carolina did not play anywhere near the level against Missouri that they played against Florida. So you see a lot of up and down in teams like that don't have strong veteran leadership, that don't have, elite players that can sort of drag players up to their level, make players around them better, right? That don't have coaching staffs that have been around a long time and know how to motivate and keep teams playing at their best every single week. So South Carolina, kind of like Texas, South Carolina, kind of like Texas, in my mind, it's a little bit of a pass this year. Now, the fans don't want to hear that at South Carolina or Texas for that matter. I get it. I'm purely talking about Beamer as a head coach going forward. This is his first year ever as a head coach. Same for Sarkisian. You can't judge them off of what they do this year, good or bad. You just can't. You have to give coaches an opportunity to get their own players in there. You need at least a 2 or 3 recruiting cycles. And head coach is a learned skill. It's a learned skill. You don't wake up one day with the ability to be a head coach. It's something you learn over time. Kirby Smart is considered one of the best 5 coaches in football right now. Go back and look at his first year in Athens. Boneheaded decisions with clock management and timeouts and personnel. On and on and on and on and on. And even in 17, when Georgia had a really good year, some of those same problems came back up from time to time. You don't just wake up and all of a sudden you're a great head coach. So, and I'm not saying Beamer or Sarkisian will be a great head coach. I'm just saying I don't think you can say they're terrible coaches just because of what has happened this year. We don't have anything else to go by with those two. It's not like you can say, well, look, here we go again with Sarkisian. Remember when he was head coach at blah, 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 and he did the same thing? No, because he wasn't ever head coach at blah, 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 and did good or bad. Same with Beamer, right? Now that wasn't true when South Carolina hired Will Muschamp. When South Carolina hired Will Muschamp, they should have known what they were getting. They got the same thing Florida got, a guy that has no business being a head coach. That was a bad coaching hire, and it was bad from the beginning. And even in his first season, you couldn't give him the same benefit of the doubt that you need to give somebody like Beamer or Sarkisian because he had a track record. And the track record was not good. I mean, the guy couldn't win 7-8 games at Florida. What in the world made South Carolina think he was going to do something better than that at South Carolina than he could do at Florida is beyond me. But that's not the case with the Beamer and the Sarkisian thing. But South Carolina, season over. Better start sewing up your recruiting class and try to get some Jimmies and Joes in there. That's about the best I can tell you. What happened here where you go out and lose to Mississippi State? My God, playoff committee sitting around going, oh, man, we should have left Mississippi State at 15 where we had them in the first poll for absolutely no reason at all. But Auburn, this was a surprising loss to me. Well, what did the score of this thing end up being, too? Because it wasn't even that close, is that right? 43-4. No, what? 43-14? Oh, my God. I bet Auburn fans have got to be done with Bo Nix. They've got to be. 3 years you've been force-fed nepotism with a helmet on. Bo Nix, 3 years. Y'all have got to be done with him, the fans. Now, the bad news is he's got another year of eligibility. So I'm assuming he's coming back because, well, where else would he go? The NFL's not going to want him. Is he going to Taco Bell? I mean, he's probably coming back. So I don't know. We'll see. 43-14 Mississippi State. And this is bad because Auburn going into this game, still had some reason to win games. I mean, the West was typically still open for them. Not now. A lot of people were pointing towards that Iron Bowl game as being another great Alabama-Auburn matchup. I don't know. It is in Auburn, and I know Bama hadn't won this since 2015, and hell, I thought it might be a good game for the last few weeks or whatever, but after what I saw yesterday from the barn, that's unacceptable. This is another loss that as a fan base, you guys should consider this an unacceptable loss. Now, you got a guy here, Harsin, first year at Auburn, not a first-year head coach, though, so he gets less benefit of the doubt than somebody like Beamer or Sarkisian, but this is a game Auburn has to win, and they didn't even compete. They didn't even compete in this game. It was bad from start to finish. They sort of looked unprepared. The quarterback from Mississippi State had like 6 or 7 touchdown passes, whatever it was. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I got to triple check this. 43-14, that can't be right. Nope, that is right. My God. That is right. I tried to tell people, I don't think Harsin knows what he's doing. Check the recruiting too. That's only gonna make you feel worse. Check the recruiting. Recruiting rankings don't matter till signing day. It's 3 weeks away. It's 4 weeks away. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? This is one of the greatest examples of all time of a team that just can't get out of its own way. Allergic to success. How many times have we said it? Go on the road, beat a red-hot Pitt team. I mean, Pitt was red hot. You go on the road and beat them. You come home the following week and almost lose to a horrible, horrible Georgia Tech team. Now, you won, so that was great. You trailed most of the game, came back and won, and that was amazing. Van Dyke has put up good numbers since he took over as a starting quarterback a month or so ago. But in your biggest game of the year, and see, that's the thing. Miami, okay, you had certain expectations heading into the preseason. It became pretty obvious a while ago you weren't going to meet those expectations, right? But Miami is there's a few teams that are like this. A season can be saved by winning one game, and that game for Miami is the Florida State game. Even though before this Florida State game was played, it was already apparent Miami was not going to meet the preseason expectations of most fans. because of the way they've been playing the last month, because of the success of Van Dyke, right? A win over Florida State would have left a good taste in your mouth during the offseason. Now, unfortunately, I don't think there's anything Miami can do over the next 2 weeks to accomplish that. I think the story now about this season for Miami is going to be blown out against Bama in week 1, disappointing losses in the first half of the season and played themselves out of a chance at the ACC title, got better in the middle part of the season, and then lost to a 4-win Florida State team to close out the year. And this is what the Fire Manny people might have needed. After they beat Pitt and then beat Georgia Tech, you looked at their record, you said, I don't know, they might be going to keep Manny. Some of the Miami fans said, I don't want to keep Manny. I don't care that he beat Pitt. I don't know if Miami's going to keep or fire Manny Diaz or not, and I'm on the fence about even having an opinion one way or the other on it. He's done about what most other coaches there have done in the last 16, 17 years since Miami joined the ACC, which is have mostly not very good seasons, and then maybe one 9 to 10 win season once every 4 years, followed up by an epic disappointment. And that's what's happening here. I'm not sure what firing Diaz and replacing him would do at this point, because I don't think there's a whole lot of elite established head coaches lined up to take the Miami job. I don't. I hear the Miami fans talk about names like Mario Cristobal and some other things. I don't see that happening personally. So I'm kind of on the fence. I do agree that Miami has been disappointing. But they were disappointing 5 years ago. They were disappointing 10 years ago. They were disappointing 15 years ago. I mean, they've been disappointing for 16, 17, 18 years in a row. How much of that is Manny Diaz's fault, and how much of it is just that might be what Miami is right now. I mean, outside of that stretch of time from the mid to late 80s, whatever it was, through the early 2000s, what's going on at Miami right now would be considered good. I mean, if you look at Miami's history overall, outside of that 15-year run or whatever it was, they have been a really bad program. What they've done the last 10 years would have been considered great prior to the late 80s. So this might just be what Miami is. I don't know. They're in the, like I said, they've been in at least since 2010. There's only been one good team in the ACC at a time. It was Florida State for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Then they fell off the cliff. It's been Clemson since then. Like, trying to find the second best team in the ACC every year for the last 10 years is almost impossible. You could almost put 5, 6, 7 different teams in a hat and just draw a name out and say, yep, that was the second best team after Clemson, but they were a mile away. And Miami has been unable to climb the ladder. They have been stuck in there's no difference at all in the last 15 years between Wake Forest, NC State, Syracuse, Pitt, Boston College, and Miami. None. They're the same team with different helmets on. It could be that the expectations need to be altered at Miami. Speaking of having everything to play for, how does this happen? There was a bunch of pissed off ROTC cadets with uniforms that were 2 sizes too small, ridiculous crew cuts, and wooden guns after this game yesterday against Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. College Game Day showed up at the Grove. Lane Kiffin, this guy never turns down TV time. He was the guest picker on Game Day. Have you ever seen that before? The head coach of the game that Game Day is at being the celebrity guest picker made little to no sense to me. But you lost 29-19 to Ole Miss. Ole Miss. Ole Miss does not have a very good defense, and you managed 19 points with that Italian hot pocket, Jake Calzada. This is what I've been saying, and it's just true. Texas A&M is not a good team. Well, they're not a great team. They're not a top 10 team. They beat Alabama, and so a lot of people, mostly Alabama fans, wanted everyone to believe that Texas A&M was some great team, and that's why they lost. No. Texas A&M, not a great team. Not even really good. They're an average SEC team this year. That's just what they are. The Italian hot pocket Calzada had the game of his life at home against Bama. Bama made some key mistakes with some turnovers and some things, and Texas A&M won the game. It was just a bad loss for Bama. That's all. That's it. This idea that if you beat Bama, you're automatically a great team. Not true. Not this year. Because, well, Alabama ain't that great. Okay? I mean, Texas A&M, a good team, a great defense. Great defense, good team. Not really good, good. Below average offense. And, 19 on Ole Miss, not getting it done. And really, defensively, I'm surprised you gave up 29. Because Alabama's defense it looks like a cheese grater. It's full of holes. And they shut Ole Miss out in the first half, and somehow you were unable to do that. It is what it is. It is what it is. Man. Uncle Lou was wrong. Uncle Lou was wrong. We'll put you back on the top 10 shelf, although you're not going to be staying at number 2. That I can tell you. When I redo the top 10 tomorrow, obviously you're not going to be at number 2. Uncle Lou was wrong. I picked Oklahoma to make the playoffs in the off season, in the preseason. Now, I backed off of that a little bit the first couple of months of the season because Oklahoma wasn't looking that good. But when other teams started losing and we got late into the season, I said, well, they're still undefeated. Anyway, had number 2, not making the playoff. Not making the playoff. And here's the thing, Oklahoma fans know this. Before this Baylor game was played, everybody knows for the last 2 weeks, the playoff committee has had Oklahoma at number 8. And a lot of people, myself included, by the way, thought that was too low. Based on what we had seen up through that point of the season, I felt like Oklahoma maybe should have been a couple of spots higher. But anyway, so we know what the playoff committee thought about Oklahoma before they played Baylor. And what'd you hear Oklahoma fans say? Okay. They have us at 8, but let's calm down. Our next 3 opponents are pretty good games, Baylor, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. If we beat all 3 of those teams, the committee will have to put us in the top 4. And I agreed. Well, the problem is, so far, you're 0 for 1. You lost to Baylor. So it's hard to imagine you even being in the top 10 of the playoff committee's poll this week. It's hard to imagine that. So let's assume you beat Iowa State next week. That might put you back into where you were, 10, 9, 8 range. Obviously, it depends on what happens ahead of that. And then Oklahoma State. Okay, let's say you beat Oklahoma State. What's that going to put you? 5 or 6? And then what do you get, a rematch with Oklahoma State? And here's the problem. I don't think you can do that. You're good. You're not great. Your defense is the same defense that we've been watching for the last 4, 5, 6 years. And your offense is nowhere near where it has been for the last 5 or 6 years. I don't think you can beat Iowa State and then Oklahoma State twice. I don't think even if you do, that the playoff committee is going to put you in the playoffs. I'm going to tell you who's making the playoffs at the end of this video. Spoiler alert, it's not you. It's not you, nor should it be. You lost to Baylor. Okay? You almost lost to Kansas. You almost lost to Texas. On and on and on and on and on. You just haven't looked like a playoff team all year. Tennessee fans are sitting around going, what's the playoffs? It doesn't matter to you what the playoffs are, Tennessee. You're so far away. I mean, hell, y'all are about to the point of not knowing what bowl games are. But you're probably going to make one this year. Anyway, Georgia humiliated you. And this is the rare case where the game went exactly like I said it would go. I said Tennessee's going to come out hot. The crowd will be loud. Tennessee will put up a fight in the beginning of this game in the first quarter, their first few possessions, and this game will be close, maybe even through halftime. But in the second half, talent and depth will pull away, and the final score will not be close. My actual score prediction for this game was 38-20. 38-20. It ended up being 41-17, so I was off 3 points each direction. Not bad. And I was extremely accurate on how I said the course of the game would go, and that's exactly how it went. Hendon Ho was running for his life. You had no ground game at all. And in the second half, you completely abandoned it. Completely abandoned the run game in the second half. Went to a total air raid, and it didn't work. It didn't work. It took Georgia a couple of defensive series to get adjusted to the speed at which you were running your plays. And from that point forward, the game was over. From that point forward, the game was over. Stetson Bennett had more yards rushing than Hendon Ho. So it is what it is. And Georgia comes out and absolutely dominates yet another inferior, overmatched opponent, Tennessee Vols. And another thing that, Uncle Lou was right. All week long, this is the best offense Georgia has played all year. They're going to score in the 20s. They're going to beat Georgia. This is the first time Georgia's been tested, which I have heard that 4 or 5 weeks this year. The result's the same every time Georgia wins in a blowout. Result was the same here. And sure enough, just like I said, as soon as the game is over, they're in the comment section talking about how many points they scored. And that's it. And now they're going to spend the next 8 months leading up to next season pointing to this game that they lost 41-17 as proof that next year is the year. Just think, they're going to use a 24-point loss at home to hype themselves up in the offseason. Just think about that. Think about how sad that really is. This was what? Tennessee's 37th loss in a row to a top 10 team? And they say, well, but we're getting better. Are you? Are you getting better? Let's check and see. Let's check Uncle Lou's copious notes. Okay. You've lost 5 in a row to Georgia. But you're getting better, you say. And this game yesterday is proof that you're almost back. Okay. You lost 41-17. That's a 24-point loss. All right. Last year, in Jerome Pruitt's last year, you lost 44-21. That's a 23-point loss. The year before that, 43-14. 24-34. That's a 29-point loss. The year before that, 38-12, 22-32. That's a 26-point loss. The year before that, 41-0, a 41-point loss. Are you getting there? You're closing the gap. Based on what? You're not any closer today than you were last year, the year before, the year before, the year before. You're a 500 team. You've got more losing seasons in the last 12 years than you have bowl wins. Hell, you've got more head coaches in the last 12 years than you got bowl wins. You're not close. The 3 teams that you have to catch, really, are Georgia, Florida, and Bama. Now, I know there's a year here and there where, like Florida's down this year, but I mean, generally speaking, those are the 3 teams in the SEC that Tennessee is chasing, right? What's your record against those teams the last 13 years? You play them all every year. That's what, 39 games, right? 13, what's 13 times 3? 13, 26, that's 39 games. You're 3-36. 3-36. And 0-3 this year. 0-3 this year. But losing to 24 by Georgia yesterday, the spread was only 20. Georgia beat you by worse than people thought. But because you lost at home yesterday by 24, now people have to take you seriously next year. I wish I could reach through this phone and slap the mustard out of your hand. That's what I wish. That's what I wish. But I digress. I can't do that. I believe in civil unrest, not violence. Some teams actually won yesterday. You believe that, Tennessee? Yeah, they did. Looked good doing it too. Cincinnati 45-28. Talk more about them in a minute. Georgia 41-17. Good win. Bama 59-3 against New Mexico State. I know it's New Mexico State, but I say it all the time. When you play one of these type teams, that's what you're supposed to do. Bama went out and did it. Scored 35 points in the second quarter. Game was over. Oregon, a 2-touchdown win over Washington State, 38-24. Ohio State 59-31 over Purdue. Ohio State, we have to start looking for their defense. It's nowhere to be found. Michigan 21-17 over Penn State. Now, I know Michigan was the higher ranked team. Penn State already had like 3 losses. Michigan's only got the 1 loss, and it was to Michigan State. Why is beating Penn State by 4 a good win? Well, because Harbaugh's the head coach of Michigan. That's why it's a good win. Harbaugh does not have a good track record in these types of games. And despite Penn State's record, I do still think they're one of the best 3 or 4 teams in the Big Ten. They let a couple of games get away from them. They have an unexcusable loss earlier in the year, but I think Penn State's a quality team. Are they great? No. Are they really good? No, but they're good. Michigan had to go there and play, and Harbaugh, 99 times out of 100, loses those types of games. You know, Georgia Tech and South Carolina found a way to lose yesterday. Michigan found a way to win. And everything is still in front of Michigan. Now they're going to have to beat Ohio State. That's the speed bump. And they're going to have to get over it. And we're going to find that out in a couple of weeks. But right now, Michigan still has everything to play for, because I don't care how football ignorant you are or what you think about the Big Ten, any one-loss Big Ten champion is making the playoff. Period. End of story. And if that's Michigan, it's Michigan. So, whatever. Michigan State, 40-21 over Maryland. Kenneth Walker, another big day. Baylor, 27-14 over previously undefeated and 8th-ranked Oklahoma. Notre Dame, 28-3 over Virginia. They were only a 5 or 6 point favorite. Blew them out at Virginia. Oklahoma State, 63-17 over TCU. How many people in this comment section right now are willing to bet money on Oklahoma in the Oklahoma State game coming up in 2 weeks? Not me. If I had to pick that game today, I'd pick Oklahoma State. I don't have to pick it today. I get to watch them play another week first, but Oklahoma State looks like a better team right now than Oklahoma. And Florida State, rivalry win, 31-28 over Miami. Florida State is in the best position right now of any of the Florida schools. I'm talking about the big 3, Florida, Miami, and Florida State. Florida is an absolute mess and dumpster fire. I mean, just more on them in a second. Miami just played Florida State. Florida State beat them. Check the recruiting. Florida State, I don't know how. Florida State is recruiting out of this world for the 2022 class based on what their records have been the last few years. They're somehow getting a lot of good players lined up for this 2022 class. Miami is not, and Florida is not. Florida State right now is best positioned for the next 4 to 5 years, in my opinion, out of the 3 Florida schools. Norvell's not going anywhere. He's not on the hot seat. Nobody wants him fired. He's sticking around. Manny Diaz, on the other hand, who knows? Dan Mullen, on the other hand, who knows? Florida State right now in the best position of the 3 big Florida schools. Now, who won but looked bad? Let's see. Dan Mullen. Gave up 52 points to something called Samford. You want to know how bad Samford is? Look at this. Samford is so bad, I don't even have a Samford helmet. I've got, teams that, I got Georgia State, I got UTEP, I got FIU, FAU, Florida A&T. I mean, you name it, I've got it. Friggin' Fresno State, Air Force, Hawaii, Louisiana Tech. I mean, the list goes on and on. All the service academies, Georgia Southern, East Carolina, the friggin' Coastal Carolina, Princeton, Yale, Harvard, Cornell, Brown. I do not have a Samford helmet. They were destroying you in the first half. They put up 42 points, the most points Florida has given up in a game in a half in school history. In school history. As much as I hate Florida, it feels like even I'm just piling on now. Florida is Florida's not even a dumpster fire. You know what Florida is? Florida is a dumpster fire after the fire department comes, puts the fire out, and then you've got that nasty-ass garbage juice that's in the bottom of the dumpster that won't drain out. That's Florida right now. What a mess. What a mess. And guess where that quarterback who had like 1,000 yards and all those touchdowns yesterday for Samford, Liam Welch, guess where he's from? Guess where he's from? He's from right here in Uncle Lou's hometown, Augusta, Georgia. God, Florida. Uncle Lou just beat you again. I can't with these Florida Gators anymore. Boy, what a failure. Dan Mullen. Oh my God. What a clown. Heisman winners or candidates. Here's your Heisman candidates. Kenneth Walker, 143 yards yesterday on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Bryce Young, 270 yards and 5 touchdowns. And he only played the first half. C.J. Stroud, 361 yards and 5 touchdowns. Matt Corral slipping down almost off the list now to only 247 yards. Not that that's terrible, but those aren't Heisman numbers. And only 1 touchdown. And Jordan Davis. You continue to hear to talk about Jordan Davis. You're going to have to prove to me. I just don't think Jordan. I just don't think they're. I don't even think they're going to invite a Jordan Davis to. I don't even think he'll be a finalist. I wish he would. I do think he's the most impactful player on the best unit in all of college football, which is Georgia. But the Heisman is such a stats award, and most of the things that Jordan Davis does to impact a game just don't show up on a stat sheet. I would be shocked if Jordan Davis ended up at the Heisman ceremony, even though I think he deserves it. And it's not just because he plays for Georgia. I have been on record for years. These defensive players get screwed when it comes to the Heisman. I thought Chase Young was the best college football player in America a couple of years ago at Ohio State. And Ndamukong Suh was clearly the best college football player his last year in college, and he got snubbed. So it's just hard for me to believe it'll actually happen, that he'll even get invited to New York, Jordan Davis, much less win it. But everyone else is still talking about it, not just Georgia fans either. You see it on all the sports blogs, ESPN, Fox Sports. Everybody that talks about the Heisman mentions Jordan Davis, so we'll see. But there you go. Now it's time to tell you who the best teams are. Well, instead of telling you who the best teams are, let me do this first. I'm going to tell you what the playoffs. I'm going to tell you the seeding and everything, okay? The number 1 seed, when the final playoff poll comes out on the Sunday after conference championships, the number 1 seed is going to be Georgia. The number 2 seed is going to be Oregon. The number 3 seed is going to be Ohio State. And the number 4 seed, sit down, is going to be Cincinnati. Oklahoma's lost. That's great for Cincinnati. Georgia's going to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game. That's great for Cincinnati. Oregon's going to win out, and Ohio State's going to win out. They can't put Ohio State in and not Oregon if Oregon wins out, and I think they are. That's my prediction for the playoffs as of the end of Week 11. Georgia versus Cincinnati, Ohio State versus Oregon. You have 2 rematches. Georgia and Cincinnati played a great game last year in New Year's Six Bowl. Oregon, Ohio State played a close game this year in Columbus, which Ohio State lost. Now, who's the best teams? Forget about who's making the playoffs. Well, Georgia's clearly the best team right now. After that, Bama and Ohio State, I think, pretty close. After that, you got a big group of teams, and here they are. Oregon, Cincinnati, Michigan, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Baylor, Notre Dame, Ole Miss. Take your pick. Pretty much any 1 or 2 loss team not named Alabama, Ohio State, or Oregon. Mix them up in a pot like gumbo. They're in the 3rd tier or 4th, whatever you want to put them in. Anyway, another great week of college football. Appreciate everybody watching today. I wish every single team could win, but unfortunately they can't. There's 130 FBS teams, which means every single week there are 65 losers. And if you were featured in today's video, you're standing in that line. Have a good morning.